Welcome to Tea Time, the podcast. I am Cassie Marina, fondly known as the Branding Queen, and I am a digital branding expert helping businesses get online and thrive doing so. I am passionate about sharing my knowledge through content creation like this podcast, online classes, and workshops, as well as through the services of my branding agency to help you develop your online systems. Think of this podcast as the place to get the latest advice, strategies, tips, news, and inspiration on building your brand online using the tools available to us, but most importantly, thought-provoking content to improve your mindset, to maximize on these tools and put context to day-to-day developments in the online world of business, with a little bit of tea dishing facts and sass, because I really want you to thrive online. So thank you so much for tuning in. Let's begin. Hey guys, I'm back with another podcast episode recording from the comfort of my car. If you listen to my last episode, you'll understand why. And I'm in my car in this episode again because I'm batch recording today. All right. So, I'm really trying to be efficient with pumping out things that need to be said and things that I'm passionate about. Like, I know the podcast is about business, but these things are important as well as we navigate these corona times. And today I was a bit riled up, I would admit, because for a while, I think when we hit 3 months into the pandemic, like at first I understood, it's really messed up. Trinidad and Tobago nationals, specifically residents, which I'm going to clarify, have been outside, right? And I understood and I had no problem with the measures taken because we basically all had to shut down, right? We had to shut down the borders. We had to do something because we just don't know what we were dealing with. But we've reached a point that it's pretty clear that Corona is with us and it's not leaving anytime soon. Like, that's just what it is. You could argue with me about it, but nobody really knows when it's going. And just as the Minister of Health said, we have to learn to live with it, right? He said that. I didn't see it. So I'm going to argue with him, right? And, I don't want to get political. Again, I don't want to get political, right? I could talk from, different perspectives of different government ministers anywhere in the world. And once you start to talk those things, it starts to get political. I don't want to get political. I just want to talk from my rational mindset and as logical as possible, right? As creatives, we are naturally creative thinkers. We are creative problem solvers. We solve problems, create systems, develop and innovate and create innovations, and we create stuff to solve a problem. And it's just within our nature to question things and not just take what authorities say we must take or what one expert says we should do. Like, we question things. That's how we get answers. And logically, nationals, like, more than 3 months is just ridiculous. 4 months, okay, maybe we could deal. But from the time we start to enter 5, 6, 7 months and we see the numbers are going upwards, not getting better, this shit is here, okay? It's here, right? And in my opinion, from what I've observed, a lot of it is from illegal immigration, right? So it got in here, in my opinion, like, it stands to be corrected, through illegal immigration. Because where it come from, right? Someone said to me that, it's true nationals coming in, allowing them to come in. I don't know about that. Maybe so. But and maybe they didn't do what they were supposed to do, or whatever the case may be. But we have a very serious issue of illegal immigration, because we're an island and they just sail across, and we know about the bribes. Like, these are real things. Now, isn't it truly messed up that illegal immigrants get access to Trinidad, right, because it's illegal, and not actual residents / citizens? Now, let me clarify the citizens and residents thing off the bat. So I'm going to be using residents for the duration of this podcast. Citizens sound better because, it sounds more entitled. Like, I am a citizen, I'm a citizen. But my dad is a citizen, right? But he's not a resident of Trinidad. A citizen, the difference between a citizen and a resident is that you can be a citizen but not a resident. So you can be a citizen but you're a resident elsewhere. Means you have a place to live. Your life is elsewhere, right? You have a place to live. You have a source of income or not, but you have rights, right? So for example, in the States, if for some reason you become unemployed, you get unemployment. Like, there are benefits that you can access, right, if you become unemployed. But if you're just a resident, right, you're a resident of Trinidad, but, right, because this is your home, this is where you live, your social welfare comes from Trinidad, because this is your place of residence. This is where your help is going to come. You can access any social welfare benefits from outside. Our residents here who've been laid off can access social welfare benefits. They can get grants. There are things, right? I'm not going to get into how hard it is and the system and how people wait. No. The point is, you have access to benefits, right? So let me just use my dad as an example. He's a citizen. He's born here, but he's also a citizen of the United States. But he's a resident. He's not a resident of Trinidad. He's been living outside for how many years? And I feel it gets very blurred when we start to say, oh, we must let citizens home. No, well, we'd have people who living outside all of these years, and now they suddenly want to run back to Trinidad. No, I'm specifically referring to residents, people who just left temporarily, whether it's for school or they were just, traveling to visit for vacation. The point is, they primarily live in Trinidad. They reside here, primarily, right? Those people are stranded. Those people have no benefits wherever they live. Some do because they might have dual citizenship, so they can still... I'm not going to get into the technicalities of that, but the point is, I want you to ask yourself, right? Could you survive in a foreign country indefinitely? Because that's what it is. There's no time. They haven't said when the borders are going to open, right? So that makes it even harder, that indefinite. We are already struggling as it is to deal with Corona on a mental level, because when we first went into it, it was like, oh, this uncertainty of Corona and the uncertainty of Corona. Much less, and you are at home in the comfort of your country and your home, right? Your place of residence. Imagine dealing with all of that in a country that your visa is on the verge of expiring. But every time you pick up your passport with a visa that's expiring, who is the passport? What coat of arms is on it? It's Trinidad. This is the place that you belong to. And you barely get any response. Like, I don't think people really understand that they don't have any sort of constant communication, any sort of support. Like, you're just out there in the wilderness and you don't hear from your country or get any, status update on when you can come home for months. And then when you do, it's very vague. We'll just let you know. Like, you're just waiting on a package. We'll just let you know when your exemption has been approved. 7 months of hearing nothing. And when you finally get a response, it's no consolation. Like, I don't understand how we can be patriotic, We just celebrated Republic Day and we post the flag, and it's like, what does that even mean? If we are here home in Trinidad and Tobago, and we cannot even stand up for our fellow citizens residing, well, not even residing, right? Stranded in a foreign country, right? They have no income, possibly, most people. Like, if you just went on vacation and you just didn't make it back in time, as the Prime Minister announced the borders are closing, like, there wasn't a very huge window to get back home, right? Like, it sounds so inhumane. Like, when you think about human rights, like on a global level of what every country should have, like when you think about global rights, human rights on a global level, does this sound okay? Like, this is ludicrous to me. Like, I just can't even understand it. I can't understand it. It's about common decency. If you are the resident / citizen of a country, it is your birthright to be able to come home. That is my opinion. Because if it's not, then I don't know what to make of us as a republic. Like, what to make of us? What do we make of us? Like, I get it, right? People start to talk about, corona is serious. Like, I get that. It is serious. But does that mean that citizens / residents stay in foreign countries indefinitely because of it? Does that make it okay? Like, it sounds very cowardly, in my opinion, that if we have these people in high places, and I'm actually gonna slip in a voice note that I sent to someone I was talking about who actually had corona, and I was just having a chat with them briefly, and they recovered. And I get that it's serious, but that does not mean that it's not serious, that we don't need to bring people home. And I'm going to insert that here. So I decided not to slip in that voice note in the conversation that I had with the person who recovered from COVID-19, but instead I decided, instead of sharing the conversation on Instagram stories, I'm going to read it here for you because you took the time to actually click play on today's episode. All right. I think I've given us enough energy on my Instagram stories. So yeah, I'm continuing that discourse on this episode, and I'm going to share with you what this person inboxed me to see. They said, the virus is bad. It was horrible, and now I'm left with a skin condition that I have to use steroids to clear up. That's why the restrictions are designed this way. There is a lot of information not being circulated, which I want to respond to that. Let me repeat that. There is a lot of information that's not being circulated because it would literally cause more panic, as you mentioned. People are already suffering mentally. I am possibly now developing psoriasis as a result of my immune system being compromised. I always had mild symptoms, but as my body can't recover due to this, in air quotes, she put, airborne AIDS. She discovered it, not discovered, she described it and compared it to AIDS. It's like airborne AIDS because instead of getting it through sexual activity, you just get it in the air through sneezing, germs, etc. Right? Right? So go back, right? So she said, but as my body can't recover due to this, in air quotes, airborne AIDS, I am suffering. Worst part is I have to go back out to work. I am paranoid about outside because I'm susceptible. I have to work with the public. That's where I got it from. Going to and from work, not hanging out, not doing anything but work. It's a really tough one. And the reason why I did not include the voice note, just for transparency is because I felt like I said enough on this podcast episode. And after reviewing the voice note, I felt like it was a bit, it could have been a bit repetitive. And I felt like it didn't really add that much more value to the episode because I felt like I got that point across. But what I do want to respond to on my thoughts on there's a lot that's not being said is I was actually having a conversation with a friend and we were discussing how people need to be shocked into doing the right thing, and this is just my opinion, right? I'm not trying to convince anybody of this or anything like that. But sometimes I feel as though like the people need to see people on the bed, they need to see it sensationalized. We see it on YouTube and other countries, but because we don't see it here, because the government has sheltered us from it, there's this general sense of like, oh, it's not that big of a deal for some. Some people question, is it even real? People think the government is lying to us. I mean, I can't blame them because they could be, because as she said, they're withholding information so as to not cause undue panic. But at the same time, that's still withholding information, right? I'm not saying that they are lying. There's a difference between lying and withholding information. And sometimes it could mean the same thing. The fact is, I feel a bit more transparency can, I don't want to say help, but sheltered. I think we're a bit too sheltered. And that is also causing us to feel as though the measures are extremely, like sometimes too strict. Now, I still stand by what I say. We do need to bring nationals home. It just needs a plan and a way to mitigate the fallout or minimize it as much as possible. All right. I know I say that somewhere here in this episode, either we already passed it or it's coming up where I emphasize that point. But this is coming from someone who's been there, experienced it. I don't have any further details. I don't know if this person was like actually in Quora or if they had to self quarantine at home and what level of care that they got and stuff like that. I don't have any further details than what was shared with me here in my Instagram DM, which is everything I just read. She basically described how bad it was, and she shared that I was trying not to give gender away, but she shared that it's really bad, and these are her symptoms, and these are like, the after what she's left with, and she compared it to AIDS. And I think that's all I'm going to say on that for now. All right. Like I've seen people on social media saying like, so nobody, like people talk so much in Trinidad. How come nobody said they had it or, and how it was? And we don't get any sort of like here, well, I wouldn't say hearsay, but we haven't heard from anybody who's experienced it. So many hundreds of recovered patients and nobody have it. I feel that is also a bit unsettling because why is there so much heavy secrecy? I'm really thankful and happy that she felt safe enough to share this with me and allowed me to share this with you all, but that is very unsettling, and to say the least, that's as much as I'm going to say. The best way I can describe it is it's very unsettling. Like you can go on TikTok, you can go on YouTube, and you could hear from so many people who have documented what it was like with COVID, but yet in Trinidad, you're not getting that documentation, you're not getting people sharing. And it's kind of fishy why, and I'm not saying that it's all a lie. I'm just saying it's unsettling, it's weird, it's odd. And it was a bit kind of, I wouldn't say refreshing, but to finally hear somebody come forward and say, yeah, I had it and this is what it was like is an eye opener. So I feel like this is needed as well. So if you're someone who recovered, my question to you is, why haven't you shared? I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but it's not funny. But yeah, it's, minds want to know. So let's get on with the rest of the episode. If you have made it this far in the episode, that means you are enjoying this episode or getting some value out of it. So now would be a great time to click pause, screenshot this podcast, and share to your Instagram stories or your favorite social media platform. Bonus points if you click the subscribe button and leave a review. Done? Okay, great. Let's get back to the show. Right. So now that you finished listening to that, we have people with degrees in high places, and we have a whole ministry of foreign affairs, and nobody can come up with a plan. Like, I'm not saying I have all of the answers. What I am saying that something better needs to be done. That this isn't right, and it is not enough. It is not enough. And it is not okay to just be like, well, Corona is serious and we're scared that they're going to bring it back in. So we don't have enough common sense and people with degrees and educated professionals to come up with a contingency plan to facilitate how we will bring them home. The answer should not be not to bring them home. The answer should be start asking questions. How do we bring them home with the least amount of fallout? I'm going to say that again. The question or the statement should not be, well, Corona is serious, so they just have to hold some strain. They just can't come home. That should not be the statement or the question. The question should be, how do we bring our nationals/residents home with the least amount of fallout? That is our responsibility as a republic nation. That is how I see it, right? And if we cannot operate on that level as a republic nation, well, then throw the whole republic away. All right? Like, what are we even celebrating? Like, come on. Come the frick on. We don't have enough bright minds in high positions. And not just high positions. We don't have enough bright minds in the nation to develop a plan. It's crazy. It's crazy to me that this is okay. It's crazy to me that we don't feel any type of way. Some of us might feel just like me, right? But then there's some of us who just care more about the numbers going up. But even without our nationals coming in, the numbers have been going up. So we may as well just bring our citizens home. That's how I feel. Because it's human. It's a humanly right thing to do. And if we cannot see that, then God help us. Like, there's nothing else that I can say. There really isn't anything else that I can say. I know I'm super passionate about it. And what I will say in closing is, we would like to see the world change. We like to see our society change. We like to see our country change. But sometimes we don't care enough to speak out about the things that are important to us. And I'm being really vulnerable talking about this on my podcast because, there's that fear of, people aren't going to get it, and people are going to look at you like you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, what is she going on and on about? It's super vulnerable for me to post the things that I posted on my Instagram stories, because sometimes you can feel like a very small voice, like a drop, not in a lake, but in a huge ocean, where the ocean cares about other things that, I don't know, I'm not even going to say not important, because all of that is like subjective statements. But what I will say is that whatever you believe in and you want to see a change, right, you have to be willing to do something about it, right? And that does not mean you have to go outside and protest or picket. Whatever your form of advocacy is, it could be simply sharing a post and tagging. It could be signing those change petitions, right? Sign the petitions. Share a post, tag the relevant people, share. Because the more that you stand up for the things that we all individually believe in, is when we can make just a little bit of a ripple effect that hopefully turns into something greater and something bigger, and just could be the start of getting more attention on something that is important, right? Because this is something I've been observing for a while, and I just hadn't said anything. And it wasn't until I saw the post by Nicholas Huggins sharing his experience, because I actually had something to work with. Because if I'm not in this situation, it's kind of hard to talk about it. And I think that is what I needed to see, to share. And then when I shared, and it just felt like nobody else was like seemingly felt the way that I felt, I would share some other nonsense and you get the reactions. And I'm not just talking about like Instagram, but like on Facebook, the discussions build and stuff like that. And there's just like so much silence. Right? So I'm going to wrap this up here. I think I said enough that you would either get the point or you don't get it. And if you don't get it, what my closing statement that I really want to bring home is that if you don't care, it's okay. It's okay. I can't make people care about the things I care about. That's bold of me, That's like, who the hell am I to tell you what to care about? But if you don't care, that's fine. But continue to care and advocate for the things that you care about. And for those who care about this particular thing, then share the post, bring some attention to it, just do whatever that you can in your own little way. No judgment, to bring about an effective change in this scenario and in the things that matter to you. Because I remember a couple months back, people were like, oh, you're there pointing fingers about who protesting and who not protesting about X, Y matter. Why don't you go out and protest? And you know what? Same applies here. If you don't care, no problem. But at the end of the day, at least whatever that you care about, it may not be this topic, go out there and do what you can. Look in the mirror. It starts with you first, whatever it is. This is what I just happen to resonate with, and I probably resonate with it because I have, digital nomad dreams, and I can only imagine, like, what if I was out there with my kids in a country that I don't, that I have no family or friends to lean on. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? So this is a cause that seems to resonate with me, and I don't know. I just find it crazy that there aren't more people who seem to have a little bit more empathy. Like, you don't have to advocate, but at least have some empathy and not just totally discard our fellow citizens. Like, it's mind-boggling to me. But hope you guys enjoyed the little change of pace in this episode, and if this resonates with you in the least, let me know. Feel free to, again, you can DM me, you can share this podcast, keep the conversation going is what I've been saying these days. So let's keep the conversation going, and I guess I'll talk to you guys on the next episode.